46. See you all on the other side, said Kate. Wherever that is. Renee took a deep breath and went in, the door closing behind him. He found himself in an empty room. On the opposite wall, above another closed door, hung a large sign that read, "Cross the room without setting foot on a blue or black square." All right, sounds like he's going to play The Floor is Lava. Renee looked down. On the cement floor just inside the door where he now stood was a large red circle. On the other side of the room, by the opposite door, was another red circle. Between those circles on the floor resembled a giant checkerboard with alternating rectangles of blue, black, and yellow. Renee studied the pattern. There was far more blue and black than yellow. So much more, in fact, that he soon realized it would be impossible to cross the room without stepping on blue or black. The yellow parts were so widely scattered that he doubted even a kangaroo could hop from one to the other. He looked at the sign again, and after a moment's consideration, he laughed and shook his head. Then he strode confidently across the room onto the other red circle, out the far door. Sticky and Milligan stood waiting for him beyond the door. They had been watching him secretly through tiny holes in the wall. Sticky looked confused and started to ask Renee something, but Milligan shushed him. "You boys can watch, but you must keep quiet," he said. He went away to tell Kate it was her turn. How did he do it? How did he get across the room like that? Yeah, I don't know either. Okay, we'll figure it out, I guess. Moments later, they saw Kate step boldly into room 7B. After reading the sign, she studied the floor, considering whether she might manage to leap from yellow to yellow. At last, she shook her head, rejecting the idea. Next, she looked from one door to the other, gauging the distance. Then, taking the length of rope from her bucket, she fashioned a loop at the end, and with one expert throw, lassoed the doorknob at the far side of the room. Fastening the other end to the doorknob behind her, she pulled the rope tight, knotted it securely, and climbed up. "Now, if I only had that paddle," she said aloud to herself, walking across the rope, "I could hold it out in front of me for balance." Indeed, a paddle might have helped, for halfway across the room she nearly fell. The boys caught their breath, but after wobbling back and forth and wheeling her arms around, she recovered. After a few more careful steps, she hopped down onto the other red circle. "Wow," Sticky whispered, "she did it." But before Kate could join the boys, Milligan appeared and took her back to the starting point to try again, this time without her rope, which he informed her would be returned upon completion of the test. "That was hardly fair," Sticky whispered. "Nobody told her she couldn't use a rope." Kate, meanwhile, was removing all the items from her bucket and stuffing them into her pockets. When she'd finished, her pockets bulging ridiculously, she unscrewed the handle from her bucket and tucked it through her belt. Then she was ready. Kicking the bucket onto its side, she hopped onto it and began rolling it forward with her feet like a circus bear balancing on a ball. Rolling first this way and then that, she zigzagged across the room to the other red circle. Renee and Sticky looked at each other in awe. Who was this girl? Yet once again, Kate reached the bucket handle, or reattached the bucket handle and emptied her pockets. Milligan entered the room. He returned her to the starting circle, this time taking away her bucket and tools, which she handed over with evident reluctance. She recovered quickly, however. Before Milligan had even closed the door behind him, Kate shrugged and cracked her knuckles, flattened her palms against the cement, and lifted her feet into the air above her. This was how she crossed the room, walking on her hands, not once setting foot upon the floor. "Never mind," said Milligan when she opened the door. He handed her bucket back. "You pass." "What I don't understand," Sticky was saying to Renee as they followed Milligan down a dark stairway, "is how you passed that test. I'm glad, of course, but I don't see how you did it. I crossed on my hands and knees so my feet didn't touch any blue or black squares. And Kate did her acrobat tricks But you just walked across the room. You were stepping on dark squares left and right. They reached the bottom of the stairs now. Milligan ushered the children into a damp, dimly lit underground passage where centipedes twisted away at their approach and other slithery creatures they heard but didn't see retracted into the shadows. By this gloomy route, he was leading them to what he had called their final testing place, which struck Renee as having a particularly ominous sound. You know what ominous means? It means like spooky. Just walked right across, said Kate. Renee, how did you get away with that? It was another trick. Those weren't squares on the floor, they were rectangles. Their sides weren't all the same length. Gosh, that's true, Kate reflected. Sticky slapped his forehead. I got my pants dirty for nothing? I crawled across the floor like a baby for nothing. I'm so stupid. I can't believe they're letting me go on. You're hardly stupid, Renee said. You're here, aren't you? Just where is here? Anyway, Kate asked. Hey, Milligan, where are we? Without looking back or slowing down, Milligan said, Right now we're passing under 5th Street. I don't suppose we could walk above ground, could we? Sticky asked. Where there's sunlight and a path that isn't wet? Where it doesn't smell like spoiled fish? Where creepy things don't keep falling on our heads? Renee added with a shudder, brushing away a beetle that had tried to skitter under his shirt collar. Sunlight just ahead, Milligan replied, and sure enough, presently he led them up another set of stairs into an empty cellar and through the cellar doors onto a quiet street lined with elm trees and old houses. The children couldn't see this right away. It took a moment for their eyes to adjust to the brilliant sunlight. And in that moment, Milligan disappeared. They had followed him out through the cellar doors. They knew that for certain, but whereas Milligan had been tall and straight in his battered hat and scuffed jacket, the children were now accompanied by a stooped little man with a big belly, wearing dark glasses and a bright yellow hat. Who are you? Kate cried, crouching in a defensive stance. Where's Milligan? Right here, the man said, warily lowering his sunglasses to reveal a pair of sad, ocean blue eyes. I'm in disguise. The children regarded him closely. It was indeed Milligan. Somehow, without their noticing, he had stuffed his hat and jacket under his shirt to create the impression of a fat belly. He had produced the cap and sunglasses from where they couldn't guess, and hunched his shoulders and bent forward to appear shorter than he was. It was a remarkable transformation. Are you a magician? Sticky asked. I'm nobody, Milligan replied, and without further explanation, he pointed across the street to a 3-story house with stone steps leading up to the front door. Please go wait on those steps. Rhonda will be with you soon. Rhonda Kazimbi? Renee asked. The green-haired girl? But even as he spoke, the cellar doors slammed shut and Milligan was gone. All right, we'll stop right there. Okay, we're getting there.